Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Texas AEL Manager Mondays. Today, our topic is staffing and comprehensive assessment. Is there a connection? Our presenter today is Mignon Lawson, and she's a director of AEL at Abilene ISD. And my name is Olga Escamilla, and I'm your host and moderator. I also have Kelly Carnline, and Tracy Hendricks, and they will be helping me. They will be assisting today. So let's welcome our presenter for today. Our presenter is Mignon Lawson. Again, she's a supervisor with adult education at Abilene ISD, and she's been in that position since 2012. And she's been in the field of adult education or education for over 20 years. She's a board member with Workforce Solutions of West Central Texas, and she is a Talley board member for the she's a West representative on the Talley board, my apologies. And she has a Bachelor of Science and a Master in Education. And I'll let Mignon talk about that a little bit further if she'd like to when she starts her presentation. But at this time, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat pod. Otherwise, if you do not, we're going to go ahead and turn that presentation over to Mignon because I know she has a lot of information to share, and we're excited to hear from Mignon. So take it away.
Hello. All right. Well, good afternoon to everyone, and I want to say it's a privilege to be here and get to visit with you today. These first few slides I am going to go through here and just give you a little information about this program, the location, so that as I go in later and talk about how we staff and how we do our assessments, that you will have a perspective of the size of the program and why we do some of the things that we do. This West Central Texas Adult Ed has 19 counties. Covers 18,000 square miles in those 19 counties. So as you can see, it's a very large area, but then we only have 4 towns amongst these 19 counties that have over 10,000 people. Abilene is the largest, as you can see here on this slide, then followed by Brownwood, Snyder, and Sweetwater. So when I say that we're rural, that gives you a real perspective. Kent County is one of our 19, and it's the 6th smallest county in Texas with a population for the whole county of just a little over 800. So you can kind of see where we're coming from. Most of the towns in these 19 counties have a population of less than 3,000. The employment data for these counties, Jones County, one of our counties, is at 4.5% with 259 individuals that are unemployed. As you can see, Shackelford County is one of our lowest and just has 42 individuals who are showing up. Now, this was data that I pulled in December. And, of course, Texas right now, we're at one of those historic lows. The 19-county area, if you go to the west, we have some counties oil boom area. So as you can see, that gives you a little perspective of some of the challenges of what we're dealing with here. Abilene, which is centrally located in these 19 counties, is about about 2.5 hours from Midland. And from Abilene, if you drive, and it doesn't matter if you go pretty much north, south, east, or west, we are about an hour and 15 or 20 minutes to the outer edges of this area that is covered by this grant recipient. Abilene ISD is the fiscal agent for our program. We're a sole provider. And I put the data up for the last 3 years or where we are this year and then the previous 2 years. And yes, I'm going to tell you right now, I took the liberty of putting GED. I know it's now called the Texas Certificate of High School Equivalency, and I'm sure you're all aware of that too, but for just simplicity, I did that with this PowerPoint. And you can see right now in this year that we currently have 29 GED recipients, and while that may look, they're in trouble, that's about where we were last year at this same time. So, I anticipate that we will probably end up with about 115 to 120 GED recipients again this year. And our overall target for this year is there, as you can see, is 1,020. Abilene is very fortunate, I feel, as a grant recipient. Our facilities, this is actually a picture of the front of our school building. It was previously an elementary building that the school district closed a few years ago. But we now have access to this building, everything in kind. It's a 33,000 square foot building. We have a full-time custodian, the utilities, district technology, and then it's a recognizable location, of course, because everybody remembers it from when it was an elementary building here in Abilene. But all of that is provided in kind by the school district. So, as you can imagine, that's a huge asset that we don't have to pay for any of the rental or any of the custodial pay or any of those kind of things. Also, in Abilene, we have what's called CityLink, which is our city bus system, and it drops off right in front of the building every hour all day. Now, I will say one of the challenges is that it does not run at night because, again, being rural, at 5 o'clock they stop. Our students can have access to the bus if they make special arrangements. It will bring them here at 5:30. It will not take them home at 8:30 at night when classes are over. So that's a challenge for one of the things that we have to deal with. Our district technology, though, there are Promethean boards in all of our classrooms in this building, and those Promethean boards were provided in kind by the district, so we are included in that. Anytime there's a district mandate, we get included in that. Our staffing here at this facility, there are currently 8 full-time employees. These 8 full-time employees, I did a little survey. There's 141 years experience in education, not all of it, 62 of it in adult ed. But as you can see, it's a veteran staff. I think that is a true asset, knowing what to do and how to handle situations that come up. We also have 40 part-time staff members. I usually need to hire about 3 new part-time employees a year. That is usually all the turnover that takes place in this program. That picture you see there is a bulletin board of our teachers and staff that we put up. I have found out that it's a big help in the hallway because people walk through and they look, and under each teacher's name, I know you can't see it here, but it tells where they teach. Maybe it's Rotan or maybe it's Hamlin, and it tells if they're a GED or an ESL teacher, or as in our rural sides, they may be covering both. But it lets people know. It's a way of advertising that we're not just an Abilene program, which that sometimes, people think that because of being Abilene School District. One of the situations, and I mentioned having a veteran staff is a huge asset. Last month in December, while I happened to be in Austin at a meeting, one of our students, 21-year-old, 22-year-old, her water broke. She was 23 weeks pregnant. This veteran staff handled that with a true professional, the way you would hope they would handle a situation like that. We had to have an ambulance here and all of those things. So I've always asked, how do you keep your staff? What makes them want to stay? Well, here's some of the things that I think has helped this program. And in communication, I know, is always a challenge for all of us, and it is something that we all must deal with. And by no means am I, perfect at this. But it's one of the things to try to do is let the teachers and the staff know that I value their opinions and that we're a team. And, sometimes they'll come in and go, hey, I want to try this, but I don't know if it'll work. It may be a bad idea. And I always say to them, there's no such thing as a bad idea. Thomas Edison tried to do the light bulb 1,000 times, and he was one time asked, said, well, how does it feel to fail 1,000 times? He said, we didn't fail. We found 1,000 different steps on how to make it work. And so I want them to know that, sometimes we try things and they don't work exactly like we planned, but that doesn't mean it was a bad idea. Because I don't know about your team, but our team, I know when we're implementing some of the new regulations and some of the new requirements that we all have to do, it's rare that the way we originally roll it out is what we end up with. There's always some tweaks, some modifications and adjustments that have to be made because there's those unintended things that you think, oh, we didn't think of that. So when you value your team's opinion, well, then it makes them want to be more, to participate and help you with those things. We also have a staff meeting about every 6 weeks, and it's a time for us to visit. It brings the ESL and the GED team together but it's the idea where we can collaborate on what's the best way to address whatever we're needing to address, whether it's our IETs or our intensive. It gives us a chance to collaborate as a group and then come up with an idea of how we think is the best way for us to proceed. Of course, sometimes you end up with a split decision, and at that point, then, as a director, you get to decide which way you think is the best way for the program. One of the challenges, and I will address this more later, of this program is it's like running two different programs. One, the one here in Abilene, which is, we're Alta Vista building, where it's our larger part. But then you go to our outer sites, which are more rural and smaller. And so sometimes you feel like everything you're doing is you're running two things, and you have to keep that in mind when you're implementing new ideas, because what may work great here in Abilene may not work in Hamlin or Coleman and some of my smaller sites. We have a fall workshop. This meeting has to take place on a Saturday. We start at 8:30. We do a working lunch, and we're through at 2:30. Now, this workshop it has to be on Saturday because so many of my teachers work full-time at other jobs, and then they're working part-time at night for us. It's the only time I can get the entire team together. We do sessions at our workshop. I usually do the teachers refer to it as the State of the Union, the first hour, but it's a time where at that time I lay out all of the new targets, what's expected, where we need to be at the end of the year, but it lets everybody know up front what's going on so that no one feels like they're in the dark, even if they're an hour and a half away from the main building. The career navigator, our secretary, and our PD, who's GED specialist, we divide up in daily different sessions, and we do a lot of planning ahead of time so that everyone is where they need to be to get the information that they need. It also allows us to move around, which is huge because, as you know, when we go to the meetings and we sit, after a while you feel like you're brain dead. But one of the things that it does is it helps our teachers be active. We always give them an evaluation form at the beginning of the workshop, because as they go from group to group, they can give immediate feedback. And I feel that this helps us get more pertinent information. Instead of if you hand it to them at the end of the day, they want to check yes, it was great, or it was terrible, and then they want to leave. So by letting them have that immediate feedback, we get some very good suggestions. It also allows me then and I make it where they can sign it or not sign it. It can, however they feel comfortable. But I take all of that information and put it on a spreadsheet, and then I try to address it so that we can become better at what we're doing. We do a monthly birthday party here at this building. Again, all of these things are just a way to keep your staff to feel like they're actively participating their part, that you value them. So that's the reason we do these things. The monthly birthday party, if your birthday falls, let's say in January, the 8 full-time staff, and we invite the part-time, some of them will attend, we will pay for the birthday person's lunch, and we just order from a restaurant that's here close. And it's just a time to laugh and enjoy fellowship for a little bit. The other thing we do is we have a staff Christmas party. I host that at my home. There's usually about 25 to 30 of this team will be able to come. It's just a 2-hour party. Now, I'm fortunate that that 3 of the other ladies here in the program, they help me with the food, the PD coordinator, our ESL specialist, and the career navigator. So the 4 of us provide just finger foods and those type things. And then everybody brings a little $7.50 gift, and we have fun exchanging that. We do not discuss work. It is just a time to laugh and interact and get to know each other. So, I feel that all of these things help me. It's a way that I look at as a leader, that I take care of the teachers, try to take care of the staff, and then what I feel is that the staff will take care of the students, and that helps take care of me and the program and the things that we're trying to do. Now, I've shared with you some quick things about this overall program, but what I want to ask you is now just kind of a way of reflecting, what do you do at your program to help build this team culture? And we'll see, does anybody have anything they want to share? Because this is a time we can all learn from each other, because those few things that I shared were absolutely not the only things that could be done.
Thank you for that question, Mignon. So as we wait, we're going to be patient and wait for people to type in, because I know sometimes it gets really quiet and we have waiting time. But I know that right now people are typing, so we're waiting for your responses. What are some of the things that you do, again, to build that culture in your program? Okay, we have Leslie. She said certificates and awards for completing PD or turning in lesson plans. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. It is.
Thank you for sharing, Leslie.
Well, I know we're going to have some time at the end again for you to share. So maybe while you weren't expecting me to ask you that, that'll give you a chance to stop and think, because this is the way I feel like, and I think most of you will too. Training staff is time consuming, and finding that qualified person can sometimes be very time consuming and difficult. And so it's easier, in my opinion, to train and try to help our staff grow and keep the ones we have. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't sometimes have someone that we have to gently counsel out of the program because it's just not a good fit. Because I've had to do that too about 3 times over the 7 years that I've been doing adult ed. But for the most part, when you build these relationships and this culture, it helps you be successful more as a team. My leadership philosophy is, as I've kind of already shared, I try to hire
Mignon,
professionals. Yes.
before we continue, we had a couple more comments. I'm going to read them, and then we'll go on with leadership philosophy. So Angela Pina says she makes staff breakfast or dinner during registration, testing, and orientation because they're all so busy. And then Mr. Martinez says that they buy lunch for staff on holidays. So thank y'all for sharing. Go ahead, Mignon. I'm sorry, with leadership philosophy.
Oh, no, that's awesome. And those are all good ideas because I'm learning from you. These are things that I can implement and try to do a better job as well. My leadership philosophy is, I've kind of shared, I try to hire professionals, hire qualified people, provide them with a mentor. You have a master teacher in your group. That's who I try to pair mine with, the one that I want them to emulate, the one I want them to be like. So I provide them with a mentor. It also gives them a kind of a security blanket. They sometimes, after you've gone through some of the training, and I know when we go through training, the first time you hear it, you think, I got it a little. And then the more we implement it and the more we deal with it, the better I become at it. Our teachers are the same way. So with that mentor, they can go back to them and go, look, I know they told me this, but I want to make sure. So pair them with a master teacher in your program. It makes your job easier, too, after you've already trained them. And then, you see there I say support, support, support. I believe that I have an open door policy. Every teacher and paraprofessional, everyone on this staff has my cell phone number. They can text or call me anytime. So that gives them that place to go when maybe their mentor teacher is not available, so that they know what to do. And especially when you're spread out as we are in this region, in this area, sometimes it's after hours, the secretary's already gone, the data entry people are gone, then they have immediate access to me. And then I do not micromanage. I will tell you that. I know that that's just a leadership philosophy, but I feel like if I've hired professionals and I've trained them, I know me personally, I don't want to be micromanaged. I want you to tell me what you want me to do, and then I'll do it. And that's the way I try to be respectful and do that back for my teachers as well. I will also say to you on this, and only because I overheard her say it one day to a person, the secretary here at this program, she and I have been working together for 12 years. We spent 5 years prior to coming over here together at a middle school, and then we came over here together at the same time. And I heard her tell someone one day in the class, when a teacher came in, she said, Mignon is the positive, the optimist. She thinks we can get anything done, and I'm probably guilty of that. She says, I'm the pessimist realist. I'm the one who points out the problems. But I will say that the reason we make such a great team is because we balance each other, because we can then collaborate and work out the problems of anything we're trying to do. I let the teachers know the expectations I have of them. I want them to build a professional relationship. Now, professional there is a key word. Abilene ISD, because of being a school district and TEA, Texas Education Agency, last year, everyone who received a paycheck through Abilene ISD, even if it was through this grant, which meant all of our temporary part-time teachers that are under this grant, had to go through 6 hours of ethics training. And I'll let you, because of what we see on the news and stuff, was the reason why. And so I want them to build that professional relationship with our students. I tell them if a student's not in your class for 2 consecutive times, whether it's a Tuesday, Thursday night class or, whether they're meeting Monday through Thursday, and you don't know why, I want them to reach out and try to find out what's going on. We try to help our retention. Now, retention is a huge obstacle for all of us, I think, myself and this program included. Because if the teacher can know the student, then they can be the ones who can help that student reach the goals and get to where they're wanting to be for themselves. This program has several resources that I think are unique. Obviously not the first one, the Career Navigator we all have, or I think we all do. A valuable resource to trying to help your people as they're moving through their IETs and the career pathways. But you see there, the Highland Education Initiative. There is a church here in Abilene, it's called Highland Church of Christ, that has brought us a credit card, and they will do scholarships for our students. When a student is ready to take the GED test, they will scholarship that cost, which is one of the barriers for some of our students, because sometimes you get them ready and then they don't have the $36.25 to take the test. The Highland Education Initiative will pay for them a scholarship and pay for this test. The only thing they require is they sign up and we just give them permission to use their card, so that when we pay for it, we give them a copy of it and track their expense. The other thing they do is they've also helped pay for the official ID, so that if someone doesn't have that, they will do that. And then one of the key things they do is there's our mentoring program. There are several retired administrators and teachers within this church, and they come up here and will meet with our students if the student is willing. It has to be student-initiated. The students, and will mentor them and encourage them. And it's one more person letting that student know you can get this done. And we have found that it makes a huge difference, because you can say it, I can say it, but when someone from the education outside world says it, it makes a big difference. We also have the Adult Literacy Council. They also provide scholarships. They support and provide all of the resources for our graduation program that we have at the end of the year. We have a walk across stage, superintendent there, school board, cap and gown ceremony. The only cost to the student is $5, which is half the cost of their cap and tassel, which they keep. We have the black robes we keep here. We also give honor cards, which we have found is a huge way to honor our students as they walk across the stage. So the Adult Literacy Council, and then there's a reception after it, and the Adult Literacy Council pays for all of the refreshments and stuff for that. We have a community resource directory that is put together by our Head Start program. It's about a 30-page directory, but it lists everything that's in this community and in this area of resources, whether it's food or housing, transportation, whether it's mental health issues that they're needing to find some free counseling. So it's all listed in that directory, and we pass those around so that the teachers have access to that when someone asks. And then, of course, our Career Navigator, we work closely with our West Central Workforce Solutions office here, and tapping into all the resources that they have available that we can use and help our students overcome some of the barriers that they have. Now I'm going to ask you a question. What stakeholders in your project, what can you be collaborating with, and who can you be working with in your community? Because Highland Church of Christ is just a local church that we are able to work with. So I'll open it up and see what feedback maybe we can learn from each other here.
Thank you, Mignon. We had a couple of other responses about what directors or programs do to recognize staff. And someone said their program director provides homemade meals and buys breakfast and lunch often, and he also provides program T-shirts. And then that was Elizabeth Moya. And then Michelle Estrada said they do teacher or assessor appreciation. So thank you all for sharing that. So as we wait for our programs to provide information about the stakeholders that they could partner with in their community, we hope that you'll share information on that, and we'll be patient and give you a little bit of wait time, just a little. Okay, we have our first response. Latanya McCullen says, we partner with the local school districts and community-based organizations to provide services to our students. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Luis says, our career and technology coordinator in the ISDs provide locations teachers for the IETs. Oh, that's a good resource.
So that's a good resource there. Yes.
Thank you all for sharing, Mignon.
Okay. Well, as we go in now, we'll go into some of the nuts and bolts of what do we do here. Here's our GED morning orientation schedule. Here's how we have a Monday through Thursday class here, 8:30 to 11:30. Those classes are leveled. There's one or two teachers available on Friday if someone wants to come in for makeup work or they want extra tutoring, even if they haven't missed, to try to help our students move forward. So as you can see, they can get 12 to 15 hours of instruction in the morning class. We have a class that meets on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the afternoon. It's a 3-hour class, and it's more of an independent study. And then we have our traditional Tuesday, Thursday night classes, which are leveled again. I have the same staff member that leads orientation for all of these different times. And I think that's huge when you're trying to keep the continuity within your program. Again, you remember me referencing earlier, it's kind of like running two programs. This is what we do here at Alta Vista in-house. Our outer sites, they have orientations. They usually have them once a month, and they tell when, especially now that we've gone to the TABE 11, 12, because of the rigor and the length of that. We've had to limit. They were having open enrollment, but we've had to change that up some because of those restraints of the time and stuff on that TABE 11, 12. Our classes here are structured this way. You can see we take a break about mid-morning, about halfway in, and we are leveled by, and I'm going to break this down in our next slide, but if you're in the upper level class, that means on the TABE you scored in the 9th through 12th, and you can see the mid-range. And then, of course, the lower level is what we have as our ABE class. Here you can see on this how our mornings classes are structured. With the leveled classes, we have an advanced math class that meets the first hour and a half, and then she goes into her science or social studies. We rotate those. We have the RLA going. We have a mid-range math class. In other words, they scored in that 5th through 8th grade, and then the ABE teacher. So you can see how we structure our program here, and because I know that leveling classes is always a challenge, and we're going to talk about some of those challenges here in a few minutes. And then the Career Navigator is available to assist. She's assisting students during that time if they need anything. She also leads RAMP classes on Tuesday and Thursday. Our afternoon class, there's just that one teacher because it's that independent study. Now, the Career Navigator is here if there's someone that's working on an IET and needs to be, ramping classes for that. Our night classes, which meet on those Tuesday, Thursday, we have 3 full-time teachers and the Career Navigator. And you can see how we do it. We have 2 levels of math and then 2 levels of RLA and then the science and social studies. And the leveling of these classes, we're going to discuss why and why not here in a few minutes, but you can see I think it benefits the students. Our students are placed in these classes based on their math score. That is the one where we decide which class do you go to first. That's just the one that usually we found that most people have math as a challenge. And so we use the math class to decide where you start out the morning. We strive to keep the classes balanced, obviously, because you don't want 25 in one session and 10 in the next. So we try to balance it as best we can. I have made this rule. I mandate that 16 and 17-year-olds must attend the morning classes, the AM classes, for the obvious reasons. They can get 12 to 15 hours of instruction as opposed to 9 hours if they're coming on the afternoon class or 6 hours if they're coming, at the night class. Now, if there's child care barriers or if they have a job, then I will make an exception, but I make them show me that and prove that to me because I want the 16 and 17-year-olds to be in there and I want them to get it done as quickly as possible. And with the more instruction, I found that that's usually where the morning. There's also more staff here in the morning, and so you can deal with any challenges or meet more individual needs because you have more help available. Our ESL morning classes, you'll notice they meet Tuesday through Friday. 8:30 to 11:30. And then we have 4 teachers here in the morning with those leveled classes. We have 4 different levels. And our ESL classes, we level off of our literacy score. I will point out that this map you see here on this picture, those names around that picture are countries from where we have had students attend here from our ESL classes. Abilene is a drop-off point for the International Rescue Committee, so we have a lot of refugee students coming in, and so we try to make it aware. They really enjoy looking at that map. Our nighttime culture, yes.
I'm sorry. Before you go on, a couple of slides back, we had someone ask, "What is the population?" Because I know that your areas are very rural, so I guess it just varies.
Population for here, as far as ESL GED breakdown, or population?
Michelle, can you elaborate? Yes. GED
yes.
ESL breakdown? Okay.
The last year when I looked, it was 49% ESL and 51% the GED, so it's almost a 50-50 split. I haven't looked this year, so it's pretty much 50-50. But our ESL population is heavy with the refugees, but depending on what the rescue committee, who they're bringing in, whether it's Congolese or from Bernese countries, it varies greatly. So it's not we have a lot of French, we have a lot of Swahili, those different languages spoken here in the building. So, So our ESL PM classes meet Tuesday, Thursday night. There's 3 teachers. There's 2 paraprofessionals that do the majority of this program's testing for our ESL. One of them is a trainer of trainers, so that helps when we have new teachers. She trains them to administer the literacy test. But these 2 ladies travel around. They do all of our in-house oral testing, and they travel to the outer sites. And the one that is a trainer of trainer is bilingual, so that's huge when you're trying to help and enroll and get everybody to understand how to fill out all the paperwork and all those things. These 2 ladies, they collaborate with the teachers at our outer sites, and I'll go over in a few minutes the setup. But they are willing to travel to the outer sites to help get everyone tested and enrolled in a proper way. The local requirements, our temporary teachers are what some people call part-time, are only allowed to work 15 hours a week. This is a district requirement they put on us, and obviously it goes back to keeping, the benefits and those type of things and keep us in compliance. There are 13 of these temporary teachers that are part of the TRS system, or teacher retirement system, which means they've already retired from education and now they are coming back and working part-time here. Those teachers, there are strict requirements from the state on the hours and the days they can work, and you absolutely don't want to go over those because it's a very high penalty. And I give them a copy of what hours are allowed at the beginning of the year, because it varies month to month. If there's 20 working days in a month, and they can work 4 hours a day, so they would be able to work about 80 hours a week and a month, not a week. Pardon me for saying that. Some of the challenges I mentioned a while ago for leveling classes. It requires more staff, because when you level, it's just going to take more teachers, requires more classrooms, and there are, huge budget implications. So you have to pay more staff and those things. It's something you have to really think through and plan ahead for. Although, while there are the challenges, I think the benefits outweigh it, or I wouldn't be doing it. A teacher has a smaller class. They can build that relationship, that professional relationship with the students easier. They can provide more individual help, and then your students can progress quicker. Then notice I'll say it says MSGs are easier to reach. They're easier. It doesn't mean you're going to always reach them, but it makes it easier because the students getting more teaching from the teacher. There's more of that personal relationship. And so it helps the students move forward, I believe, more quickly. And the students become more confident. I know probably in your program, you're probably just like us. Sometimes you feel like you're a cheerleader, but letting them know that they can do it, because for so many times they've failed, or when the education system was hard for them. And so it's nice to know that we can build that confidence so that they can go ahead and reach their goals and move forward with what they're wanting to do. Our outer sites, as I've mentioned a time or two, we feel like we're running 2 programs here. The teacher and the students there decide what days and times they're going to meet. Now, I do require that they meet a minimum of 6 hours a week, because I feel like we need at least that much instruction time a week to move forward. But they pick the days. Some of our classes in the outer sites meet on Wednesday and Thursday. Some meet Monday, Tuesday. Some meet Monday, Thursday. I let them pick what week works best for them in their community, because we are so spread out. If I try to mandate one way, and we're going to all do it the same, which would obviously be easier for the staff here because it'd be easier to monitor and keep up with, but it wouldn't meet the needs of the students in that community. And that teacher and those students then decide. Pretty much it stays the same year to year, but they'll tweak it from time to time based on those who are attending. In our outer sites, our classes meet, at churches. We're in a housing authority building in one community. We are in colleges. We're in high school buildings. We meet in a public library in one community, and then in one we're just in community buildings. So you can see we're kind of all over the place. I'm fortunate I only pay rent at 3 locations out of the entire 19 counties that we serve. Those outer sites, they mail in their time sheets, the student sign-in sheets, all of those things come in that way. It all comes into the secretary, to the adult for this program, and they follow the school calendar in their community, because that varies greatly too, as you can imagine. Now, one of the things about mailing it into the outer site, when we had our fall workshop that I mentioned earlier, we give our teachers in the outer sites, they all end up with a roll of stamps, obviously for postage, but they also have the large manila envelopes, and the secretary has already put her name and label on there, typed up with the form, so that all they have to do is slide it in there, and we're able to track our materials and stuff easier that way, because everyone in this program knows who's taking care of their data for their class. The classes in these outer sites are not leveled, obviously. I have a teacher at every site. If there is a GED class, I now, because of the TABE 11-12, I went back in October and November and hired paraprofessionals to assist every teacher that teaches a GED class, because some of them were standalone sites where she or he was the only instructor in that classroom. And so in order to continue, they're moving the students along that they have, but also to enroll other students, we've trained all the paraprofessionals and the teachers with the TABE 11-12. We did that on a Saturday back in November. So those are some things that we've done for the outer sites to try to help them. IETs, I will tell you, that is probably one of the biggest challenges for our program. We have a collaboration and an MOU with Patty Hanks Shelton School of Nursing, which is tied to our Hendricks Medical Facility here in Abilene. Hendricks is the largest hospital within 100 square miles of this area, so it pretty well serves the entire 19 counties. So unless you're wanting to drive to Lubbock or Dallas, this is where the main medical facility is. Patty Hanks does the training for CNA. So we have a referral system set up with Patty Hanks and a screening system for our students there. We started this collaboration back in February of last year. And our career navigator, of course, she does the ramping and things for those classes, and then encourages our students to go ahead and pursue LVN and RN, and we have a student that's actually doing that right now that's moving on from the CNA program. But here's one of the things. When we started this partnership with Patty Hanks, they allowed our career navigator, she went in and she audited the entire class, the entire process with them. And then they agreed to share their curriculum with us, but you notice, assuming we signed an MOU that we would not share it with other educational entities because of the competition here in town between them and some of the other colleges. They didn't want us sharing their curriculum, which we agreed to because, ethically, and I felt that was the right thing to do. Tuition for Patty Hanks is $900. That includes their first certification test, scrubs, textbooks, all of those things. Currently, we're paying half of that tuition, so we're paying $450. Last spring, when we first started, because funding was a little different for the program, I was able to pay all of the tuition. But like I said, currently now I'm just paying half of it. This next slide is going to show you the referral that we actually use with Patty Hanks, so you can see what we're doing to how we send it back and forth. You also notice at the bottom there the student signs it. But they have the contact information of the lady who's over the program there at Patty Hanks. They have Hillary Gwilt, who is our career navigator. They have her contact information. And this is emailed back and forth, so it helps clear up the things like, does the student qualify because of shots and all those things. That's the kind of thing that Patty Hanks is screening them for. And then she also does an interview with them to make sure that she thinks that they can be successful, with all the things. Our assessment strategies here, the testing that we do, I think it's pretty simple. I'm one of those that want to keep it simple for everyone. Our GED students, we have been giving them the practice test the week after orientation. Now, we will probably move that back a little now, but we've implemented the table 11 and 12, and we went to full implementation on January 1st, per the requirements. We did not do it in the fall. And the reason I'll probably move it back a week is because of the just testing fatigue. Because if they've just done the table 11 and 12, and then you come back in and say, even though the practice tests are different, I think we'll probably give them a few days in classroom and then do that. But the beauty of doing that is the practice test is that it gives you. We have found that several of our students are ready to go take some of the tests even prior to the 12 plus hours. We do require that they do the 12 plus hours, though, before we will let them use any of our scholarships that are provided by the Highland Education Initiative or our Adult Literacy Council, which most of them will do that. They figure that, 4 days of instruction and just brushing up, even though they may have tested high on the practice test. They want that to make them feel secure in what they're doing. Our ESL students, we test them right the day after they get their 60 hours as soon as we can. Now, of course, the challenge is your outer sites, because I have to send those ladies to travel out there. We try to get as many of them at one time as we can. If there's a group that's going to finish up within 3 or 4 days of each other, we try to to wait. But if it gets down to, some of the things here, I won't wait on a group testing, because the group testing, in the meantime, while we're doing that, they may not still be there. Here's some of the assessment challenges, that traveling that I just mentioned. The budget implications because of the travel. You're having to pay the people and you're having to pay mileage. But so it kind of gets into sometimes a budget versus your measurable skills gains. I usually go for the measurable skill gains because I figure I'll find someplace else in my budget to cut something. Because now that we have money tied to our measurable skills gains at the end of June, that's another challenge. But even prior to that, I've always kind of gone for the measurable skills gains because I think it gives us an insight into how our students are doing. And you never know from time to time. We all know they can be coming every day, and then it's all of a sudden you can't find them sometimes. Here's a summary of what I have presented to you. Our classes are leveled. You try to get your teachers to build that relationship with the students, that professional relationship, I should say. Progress testing is done as soon as possible after a student reaches 40 or 60. The secretary, the director, we coordinate the outer sites. Who's going to be traveling when? I approve if they're going to be going and traveling because of the budget implications. Those 2 paraprofessionals that I've mentioned, they go out and do the oral testing. Our GED students, they take that practice test as soon as possible. And I think all of these things together help with retention and the MSGs. Now, obviously, retention is always a problem, and I think it always will be just because of the programs that we're working with. Here's how our office is structured. There's 2 ladies here that do the data entry, the secretary and then 1 data entry lady. Each one has specific classes. The secretary takes care of all the outer classes. The data entry person here in-house takes care of all of the classes in-house. This lets your teachers know. They know who's entering what for their class. If there's a question, did you get the paperwork, or this doesn't look right, they know exactly who to go to. The GED and our ESL specialists, they watch the data for their area. And, of course, as the director, I watch all of it. So that, in a nutshell, is what we do here in Abilene and the 19 surrounding counties. I'm fixing to show you. Here's my contact information, my email address and everything. And I'm going to go ahead and I will do this over the phone here. I'll go ahead and give you my cell phone number. I will say that if you're someone that decides you want to text or call me and I don't have your information, if you text me, please tell me your name. Say, I listened to this webinar, because otherwise, because of telemarketing, I won't answer the phone. My cell phone number is 325-669-4354. So now I'm going to open it up. If there's any questions for me, or if you want any clarification of anything I've said, I'll try to give us a little more detail.
Mignon, thank you so much for sharing your information. And everyone, she sent out that cell phone number, so not very many presenters do that. Thank you, Mignon, for being willing to do that. We're already getting some comments here. We have someone that says, great information. Thanks for sharing, Mignon. And then thanks for sharing the information with us. And then somebody needs to see your contact information again.
There we go.
So we'll wait if y'all have any questions for Mignon about anything she covered. We'll be glad to take questions. We have about 10 minutes left, so we'll open it up when you're ready. Okay, we have a question from Sherry Smith-Dennis, and she says, since starting the Table 11 and 12, how has it changed your orientations?
Well, obviously our orientations we were doing in the morning. We were doing 2 mornings. We have now scheduled for 4 mornings. I do think, based on what Mike Johnson said on our director's call last week, and what we're seeing so far, is that it's not going to take all of the time that's allowed for the testing for each one of the subjects. We've allowed 12 hours. But I'm going to be honest, as a director, losing 12 hours right up front of contact time scares me, because of, you're trying to get to that 40-hour mark. So we think we may be able to get it done in 3 days. But, of course, we've just had one group come through. It wasn't as large as what we usually see in August. So I think August will be our real challenge. Right now, we've allotted 12 hours or 4 days.
Thank you. And Mignon, why do you send paraprofessionals to the outer sites to administer the Best Plus test to students? Did you mention?
Yeah, I mentioned that. The reason those 2 ladies travel instead of having the teachers will do the literacy test, is because at a lot of my sites, there's just one teacher, and if they're having to administer the oral test and work one-on-one with that student, then there's no one there working with the other students, and we found that it was hurting our retention, because the students would leave because they think, well, she's working with them, even though you might give them something to work with alone. The other thing is it's helped the continuity of our testing and the data when the same person does it. Our teachers, they may be trained, but if you do that, you're pulling them away from the classroom. Okay, we had another question. Thank you. What's Abilene's percentage of Latino population? I would have to get that information from someone. It's not as high as you would probably think, because of the IRC bringing in our refugees. But I will pull that up and look for someone. I haven't looked. So if you can tell me, Olga, how I can get that back to them, I will after we get off the phone. Very good. I will. Okay. So we still have about 7 minutes. Does anybody else have any other questions for Mignon? We'll give you a couple more minutes, and then if there are no other questions, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But we'll just wait a few more minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Jeanette. Jeanette Morris says, thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Well, we have Mignon. She is our captive presenter for the next few minutes.
This is Tracy. Sherry Smith-Dennis did ask another question about, since starting with math in the leveled classes, do they then change classes when they study the other subjects? Mignon, do they
yes, they do. Yes. Yeah, at 10 o'clock they rotate. If you get that rare student that only say they've already passed their science, social studies, and their RLA, then they can stay in the advanced math the whole 3 hours. But otherwise they rotate at 10 o'clock. They take about a 10-minute restroom break, smoking break and all those things. And then they rotate to the second subject, which is usually their RLA class. So, because even some of those that are in ABE at the beginning, maybe for math, they don't need it for the RLA. And so I have everyone located on one end of the building, those classrooms, so that your GED's one end of the building and ESL's kind of at the other.
We had another question.
Okay.
It's from Juan Gomez. It says, do you deal with adults from the reentry population?
We do some. We have it's called the SAT. It's a substance abuse treatment facility. Now we actually go out there and work with them while they are they're there. They usually are there for about 6 months, and then they start reentering into out into the workforce and those things. And so we work with those. We tried in the past to have a class out at our Taylor County jail facility. The problem we ran into is they were there usually 10 days to 2 weeks for a lot of them, and they weren't there long enough. And even though you would tell them when you get out you could come here, they usually would not be staying in Abilene or in this 19-county area. And so it was not a viable class to have, and so we don't do that now. So that's the only reentry that we're working with right now, is that substance abuse treatment facility.
Any other questions before we end the webinar? I do want to thank Mignon one more time. Thank you, Mignon, for sharing all this great information with our programs, and I know that it's going to be helpful to others. And
thank you.
If there are not any other questions, then we're going to go ahead and end. But I thank you all. Thank you all for your participation and for being here today on this wonderful Monday, this Texas AEL Manager Monday. So thank you all for sharing. Thank you, Mignon, for being on the webinar and presenting your information, and we will see you next month.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for all of y'all that attended.